In the quiet countryside of northeastern France, nestled between rolling hills and winding streams, lay the village of Domrémy. It was a place of farmers, simple folk who worked the land and spoke in hushed voices about the never-ending war between France and England. It was here, in the winter of 1412, that a girl named Joan d'Arc was born to Jacques d'Arc and Isabelle Romee. She was raised in a modest home where the scent of freshly baked bread mixed with the earthy aroma of livestock. Joan, as history would come to know her, was an ordinary child in many ways. She tended sheep, spun wool, and prayed in the small village church. But from a young age, she carried within her an extraordinary secret, a fire that no one could see, but that burned brightly in her soul. At 13, Joan's life took a turn that defied explanation. While alone in her father's garden, she heard a voice unlike any she had ever known. It was warm, powerful, and filled with divine presence. "Joan, my child," it said, "God has chosen you." Over time, the voices became clearer. They belonged to Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret. They spoke of France's suffering, of the English occupying its lands, and of a king, Charles VII, who had yet to claim his throne. "You must go to him," they said. "You will lead France to victory." The idea was unthinkable. A teenage girl, a peasant with no knowledge of war, could not possibly lead an army. And yet Joan believed. The voices were not madness, they were her calling. At 16, Joan left her village. Dressed as a man for her safety, she traveled through enemy territory to the court of Charles VII in Chinon. The future king, uncertain and surrounded by doubters, agreed to meet her. To test her divine claim, he hid among his courtiers. But Joan, without hesitation, walked straight to him.
"You are the true king,"
she said, kneeling before him.
"And God has sent me to see you crowned."
Skeptical, Charles had theologians examine her. They found no fault, no deception. She was not a witch nor a liar. The only explanation was the impossible one, that she was telling the truth. Armed with armor and a banner bearing the words, "Jesus Maria," Joan rode to war. Orleans had suffered under English siege for months. Supplies were dwindling, morale was shattered. But when Joan arrived, clad in shining steel, something changed. Soldiers whispered of miracles. The common people saw in her something more than a warrior. They saw hope. Under Joan's leadership, the French attacked with newfound ferocity. Arrow-ridden and battle-weary, she led from the front. At one point, she was struck by an arrow in the shoulder, yet she returned to the fight. 9 days after she arrived, the siege was broken. Orleans was free. France had its heroine. Victory followed Joan like a divine wind. She pushed the English back, and, as her voices commanded, she led Charles to Reims, where he was crowned King of France. As he knelt before the altar, Joan stood by his side, tears in her eyes.
Ma mission is fulfilled.
She whispered, but fate had other plans. With her task complete, Joan longed to return home, but the war was not over, and the English feared her now more than ever. In 1430, while defending the town of Compiègne, she was thrown from her horse and captured by the Burgundians, allies of England. She was sold to the English for a ransom no one in France seemed willing to pay. The girl who had led kings now found herself bound in chains. Imprisoned in Rouen, Joan faced a trial that was nothing more than a formality. The English and their allies sought her destruction. They called her a heretic, a witch, a fraud. For months, she was interrogated, starved, and threatened. But Joan, even in her darkest hour, did not break. She stood firm in her faith, defying the learned men who sought to twist her words.
I am sent by God,
she told them.
You may condemn me, but you will not silence the truth.
Yet her fate was sealed, accused of wearing men's clothing, a sign, they claimed, of her defiance against God. She was sentenced to burn. On May 30th, 1431, Joan was led to the marketplace of Rouen. A great wooden pyre had been built, and she was tied to the stake. The crowd gathered, watching in silence. Some wept, others jeered. As the flames climbed higher, Joan's last words rang through the smoke.
Jésus, Jésus, Jésus.
The fire consumed her, and with it, the last breath of a girl who had once led armies. Joan's enemies thought they had erased her, but they had only made her immortal. 25 years later, her trial was overturned. She was declared innocent, martyred by those who feared her light. Centuries passed, and in 1920, the Church recognized what the people had always known: Joan of Arc was a saint. Her name echoes through time, not as a warrior, not as a martyr, but as a symbol of faith, courage, and the unshakable belief that even the smallest voice can change the world. If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more illuminating stories from Brain Bright Studio. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep your mind bright.